Lake Harriet Spiritual Community, please help me welcome Dianem singer and Jage keys.
Thank you. Good morning. Today we're going to have fun with the topic. When we reframe, we're going to attune to the energy awareness through stories, science, and through songs. So we'll relate things into changing perspectives and reframing. And in our work with vibrational perspective, we really attune first to co-creating and using the energy that we can create and build that momentum to draw in what we would like in our lives. So when we talk about the vibrational energy, we're going to be talking about the widest scope of energy. So we've got the energy in motion, we've got the emotions, we have the energetic frequencies, the rhythm in the frequencies, those kinds of things that are in sound and that are in music. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the vibrational energy outside the hearing ranges, but in the felt sense and the etheric bodies, that kind of energy. And that synergy that's all blended together, that's what creates our personal resonance. And when we have the skills to work with that, we have full expression of who we are.
One of the things we always like to start with is just kind of a visualization that helps us tune into where we are right now. So I'd like you to visualize that you have a remote and it's got two buttons on it. One is pause and one is play. And I'll describe each button. The pause button, what that does is it puts everything outside of the room on hold, all the stuff in your life. It'll pause. It's got an automatic reset, so you don't have to worry about turning off the pause. Once you leave, it'll all kick back in. So I'd like you all right now to visualize pushing your pause button and putting everything else outside the room on hold. And now the play button, you don't need it to start things going again. The play button is to give yourself permission to play. Play with any ideas you want. You can let go of the current restrictions you have in your beliefs. Just play around with stuff, try it out, discard it, keep it, whatever. So right now I'd like you all to push your play button. Thank you. So that's just a simple reframe that you can use anytime in your own life, just thinking about pausing and playing. Give yourself permission to do that at any time. There's, like Dianem was saying, there's the different kinds of vibrations that create our universe around us and our universe within us. And that can be, we like to categorize the different vibrations, but really they're all one and the same. And some of the ways we like to categorize it is if the vibration is something that builds a pattern and connects with each other and is moving slower than the speed of light, we call that matter. It has mass. If it's moving faster than the speed of light, it's the same thing. But then it goes into the electromagnetic spectrum, and we get the X-rays and the light that we can see. Sound actually falls into the matter category, and recent science has shown that it does have mass. And then there's the entanglement that these particles that make up the light and the mass, which is one and the same, those particles, they can become entangled where what you change in one particle impacts another particle that can be all the way across the universe, but they affect each other. And that doesn't even have a speed. That's instantaneous, so it's beyond the speed of light. It's not traveling at all, it's just instant. And it's interesting that we'll categorize those vibrations differently into entangled subatomic particles, which actually creates the electromagnetic vibrations, which creates the mass vibrations when we get slower. And all of those work within your body at the same time. They're all intertwined. So we'll have biochemical things happening in the mass level which can trigger or transform into a nerve impulse, which is on the electromagnetic frequency. And that can be impacted by our consciousness, which is that instantaneous entanglement. So it's really neat that our bodies are actually transforming vibrations of different categories that we put it in.
So when we're talking about reframing today, keeping all of that in mind, the first thing that we always focus on is on inner harmony, because inner harmony, it resonates through you through all these different ways. It creates and assembles all around as outward harmony. So I'd like to attune with everyone in the room here today and just resonate now with a co-created inner harmony, inner peace, inner love, and inner light. There will be peace in the valley. There will be peace in this valley. There will be peace in this valley for me. There will be love in this family. There will be love in this family. There will be love in this family for me. And there will be light on this journey. There will be light on this journey. There will be light on this journey for me. If I want peace in the valley, if I want love in this family, if I want light on this journey, it's up to me, 'cause I am the peace, I am the love, I am the light I seek.
Thanks for that attunement. I always appreciate just taking the time to really attune to that light and love and peace, and that's all coming from within us. I heard a quote during the week while getting ready for speaking here. It's not what they think about you, it's what you think about what they think about you. And that reminded me when I was going to college for music, they had signs up that said, "No clam zone." And I was like, "No clam zone? What?" And one of the seniors explained to me that a clam is in jazz when you're improvising, and you play this note that's just kind of like, oh, that guy played a clam. It's just kind of out of there, doesn't harmonize at all. And the signs "No Clam Zone" were up there, not because they didn't allow you to play the wrong notes. It was because there was no judgment. It was a no clam zone. You could experiment as much as you wanted to and feel free to make a mistake or not and play a clam and not be judged by it, to experiment. And that you'll see that with professional musicians too. Herbie Hancock is a jazz pianist, one of my favorites, and he likes to talk about how he was at a gig and he played a clam, and Miles Davis was playing with him, and Herbie was like, that just sounded awful, but kept going. And Miles Davis, when it came around to his turn to solo, he took that clam note that Herbie had played, and he incorporated it, and he added to it, and he turned it into something that actually sounded in harmony with what they were playing. And so that's just a great example to me of attuning to what's possible and adding to it and bringing things from what we would call undesired into harmony.
And I thought, as a reframe, I would share some wisdom that I received from my grandmothers. And they didn't necessarily sit me down and tell me, this is the wisdom I'd like to give you. But in being with them, it was the observation that I got from it. And so one of the things I learned is I'm really good at finding things. I learned how to see patterns and how to discern the difference in the patterns. So the way I learned that is my Grandma Genevieve, she was a very meticulous woman. She was always cleaning. She was German. She was forthright. She had a lot of energy. And one of the things that she would do to relax was she would go outside and she would take this stance, always with her arms behind her like this, that opened her chest up, and she would look over the lawn, and she enjoyed finding four-leaf clovers. And so I was a young kid. I came out all the time, and I was always marveling at how she did it. And so I tried it one day while she was out there, and I went out into the grass, and I looked around, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's so many. And I looked, and I go, that's 3, that's not 4, that's 3, not 4, not 3. And after a while, I turned to Grandma, and I said, how can you do this? How can you possibly do this? There are so many 3. And she said, dear, I'm not looking for a 3-leaf clover. I'm looking for a 4-leaf clover. So I learned from her that it didn't help me at all to go out and say, not this, not that. This is hard. It's over that. Oh, my goodness, I can't do it. She just simply knew they were there, and she would go out, and they would occur to her. They would just stand out. And so I learned to look at things that way, and now I'm very good, as I said, at finding money and jewelry and things that are lost and all kinds of things, as I practice that from very little. Another thing I wanted to share was from my Grandma Doris, and she was just a woman who paid attention very much to how she looked in her home and how to make things harmonious. She wasn't all concerned with all the meticulousness of my other grandmother, so it was very much a different juxtaposition. But sometimes all the time, she paid very close attention to words. Words were very important to her, and so one thing I learned from her that I've used throughout my life is that words have a weight, or they have a resonance, they have a vibration. And the ones that you use and how you use them matter. But the main thing that I was going to share today is when I would be over and then we would get packed up to go back home, I would have lost a shoe or, something, my blanket or who knows what. And I would get so angry because I don't want to lose it and I don't want to leave it. And she would say, well, why don't we say, if you were your blanket, where would you be? And I thought, well, I would be in the bedroom when I had it on my pillow. And I'd run over there and look under the pillow, and there'd be the blanket. And so another time, I'd lose a shoe, like I said. I'd say, if I was my shoe, where would I be? And I'd trace my little steps back. So I saved myself all this time of being upset about the shoe isn't there, the shoe isn't there, the shoe's supposed to be there, it's not with the other one, that sort of thing. So to this day, when we met, he always remarked, why do you always say, if I were my keys, where would I be? Out loud. But now we both use that as the reframe. And so from the one grandmother, I have how you are available to things and knowing they're there. That's the entrainment. Knowing they're there and then you meet it. You see the pattern. And my other grandma, who helped me to realize that how you pose the question is part of the answer. And so that's the reframe, is the words you use, yes, but also that playfulness and that sense of curiosity sort of relieves you of all this other, tension. And when we have the least amount of tension, that's when we're the fullest of all well-being and love that sweeps in and brings us what we need and what we desire. What would I do if I knew I could not fail? If I believed, would the wind always fill up my sail? How far could I go? What could I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where true believers dare to tread. I'd never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What if we're all meant to do what we secretly dream? What would you ask if you knew you could have anything? Like the mighty oak sleeps in the heart of a seed, are there miracles in you and me? You know there are. If I was brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where true believers dare to tread. I'd never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? If I refused to listen to that voice of fear, what the voice of courage whisper in my ear, then this is what I'd hear. I am brave enough to move ahead, where true believers dare to tread. I'd never lose faith, even when losing my way. were brave. Today, well, I am brave. What will I do today? I am brave. What would I do today? I am brave. What would I do today? I am brave. What would I do today? I am brave. Thank you. So that was me just using those reframes from my grandmothers to ask a question, have a little fun with it, and try to become that, and then become it. And at least for a bit of time, I carve out that result. And I meet with well-being in the resonance. And I invite you at any time to find any piece of music during the day and resonate with that. And you could do the pause and play, and then you could put on this song. But I know it always does it for me. So thank you to the grandmas for helping me see things, because they're there and because I am part of the question to get the result. One other word that I'd like to give you as part of the reframe is reframing the word opportunity so that you can see straight in the middle of it in bold tune. T-U-N-T. So that whenever there is something that looks like a doorway, it could be there to something else. And it might be something that's thrilling, but really you've never done it before, or it might be something that you really don't prefer. Either way, the doorway is there for how you respond and resonate. So, opportunity is the entrainment. And so I'd like to give you one other word to go with the opportunity to help reframe something that I think we can all reframe for us for the better, which is the concept that relates to stress, but it's called eustress, spelled E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. It's a scientific word, but the etymology goes back to the Greeks, and EU, the prefix is meaning good, and then stress, which is a force. And so it literally translates to good stress. So how many times do we think of those together? But that term illustrates to me that within any kind of stress, there's another availability, a doorway to channel the good stress within it, which are all those energies that Jage was talking about earlier that are living within the stress that we have. So eustress is, I wrote it down from the dictionary, but it's beneficial stress. So it says a positive form of stress having a beneficial effect on health, motivation, performance, and emotional well-being. Beneficial stress of either psychological, physical, biochemical, or radiological nature. So if you find yourself in any situation, I hope that idea will expand a little bit within you to give you a little bit of space to be with what you're needing to be with.
So stress is one of those things where it starts off usually as a feeling, and a lot of times I will start judging having feelings where it's like, anger or fear or sadness or stress. It's like, well, I shouldn't feel stressful. I shouldn't this, that, or the other. So when I feel any kind of stress, I realize that that's something trying to get my attention. It's not a bad thing. And it's trying to get my attention so that I can do something to change that stress. Same as if I were to cut my finger. If I feel some pain from that, it's saying, hey, I'm here as a little cut. Just be a little more careful, have some compassion towards it. And it's basically getting my attention, not to cause me further distress and blame myself for cutting, but to pay attention to it. So I thought, well, how can I apply that to other things that make me stressful? And a while back, I used to think of, I'd see someone on their mobile phone, and I'd think, wow, that person's pretty disconnected from the world, just in their own little thing, ignoring everything else. And I'd go into this judgment, and then that wouldn't feel so good. And then I'd be like, well, I shouldn't judge people. And then here I start judging myself for judging other people, and it's this vicious cycle of stress. And I was like, well, how can I turn that around into some sort of eustress? Maybe what I can do, well, let's see. The judgment is sort of, people are disconnected. I feel like they should be more connected. How am I not connected? How can I use that? And what I did is I changed my trigger into something that was a trigger, instead of being something where I'd get all wrapped up in this judgment game, into a trigger for me to pay attention to connection. So I'd see someone on their phone, I'd go, oh, well, they're not very connected. Connected. I need to be more connected. Why don't I take the time to, take a breath, do a pause and play, or, just connect with my inner self with that peace, light, and love. And I offer that as a possibility that you can take something that you find is a minor distress and turn it into a eustress.
In a way, I this week was using eustress as an opening doorway, an opportunity. I'll share with you through another song. Now, this song was the title of a short film, as well as a 1945 award-winning song for Frank Sinatra. It was dealing about America and what we wanted as a country. So in 1945, this short film that Frank Sinatra did was talking about inclusivity. It was talking about these brand new ways of coming up with words like diversity. And he was so proud of the house I live in as this short little film and the song that won a Golden Globe award. And that was in a year after, in 1946. And then it also won an honorary Academy Award in 1950. So it was well recognized. And towards the end of his life, he wrote about it as being one of the things he was very most proud of. So in this song, it rings true for me today as well, but I also have a memory that's a wonderful memory for me of singing this song when I was around 12 years old as part of a semi-professional group that was in the Twin Cities, and I just remembered that it gave me a sense of unity. So that's where I want to spend my time growing that sense of unity. And for me, it's always like I can resonate that the longest in my power if I'm using it through music. So that's where I go for it. And I remembered this song, which still, as I said, rings true for me today. And so I asked myself, what does it mean to me? What is a democracy? And what's America to me? The house I live in, a plot of earth, a street, the grocer and the barber and the people that I meet, the children in the playground, the faces that I see, all races, all religions, that's America to me. The place I work in, the workers at my side, my little town or city where my people lived and died, the howdy and the handshake, the air of feeling free, the right to speak my mind out, that's America to me. the things I see about me, the big things and the small, the little corner newsstand or that house a mile tall, the wedding in the churchyard, the laughter and the tears, the dream that's been growing for more than 200 years. The town I live in, the street, the house, the room, the pavement of the city, or a garden all in bloom, the park, the school, the clubhouse, the million lights I see, but especially the people, that's America to me. This place I live in, the goodness everywhere, the promise for tomorrow, with enough for all to share, that howdy and the handshake, the air of feeling free, and especially the people. That's America to me. Thank you. And I think it's really worth it to carve out a bit of space and time in every day to really resonate with your desires and try to be as fully them as you can possibly be. So that's one way that this week, when that song occurred to me, that I brought it in. And so one other thing along that lines of creating something with opportunities to tune to the well-being and the eustress, where we can open up a little wider and have some space with things and look at them and really resonate to fully be what it is that we wish to have most all the time and expand it. I'd like to give another reframe that is, we've all heard of FOMO. Have we all heard of FOMO? F-O-M-O. It's big in the society now. The fear of missing out. Right, so we've got all these avenues of information that come into us these days. More power in our hands than they had in the computers that filled a whole room back, in the days where I was a kid. So we have this amazing amount of access to the entire globe. So this FOMO has come up as a thing. I'm missing out, I can't quite get it all, and it can lead to stress. Well, I would like to reframe that, just like with Eustace, to what I found is JOMO, which is the joy of missing out. And what that means is, and it's actually something you can look up, it has a definition, it's feeling content with staying in, disconnecting and connecting inward as a form of self-care. So we can go from FOMO to JOMO.
So it's that one of the things that I like to do is when I notice something like that where it's bothersome, is to take time in between and figure out what I do want to attune to. Because whenever we're walking around, we have the ability to attune to something more. And when we're in the middle of a situation, we'll tend to put our blinders on, and we start thinking that we are that thought, that is who we are. We identify it with it. Or that emotion that we're having. I am angry. I am angry. It's like you put on the blinders and you're so identified with it that it's hard to see the other possibilities. So in between, I like to figure out what is it that I will attune to when I notice that my blinders are on, when I have that shutdown of awareness. Is there something that can trigger me to help me get out of that? And there's always someplace bigger than what we think we are. There's so much more energy and power in each of us, in each of our souls, where we can tap into that peace, light, and love that is within us. It's just a matter of opening up to it and adding on to it. And you may have heard the phrase that what you resist will persist. That's where you get those blinders on, and you're so focused on the three-leaf clover being difficult to find, or this isn't where it should be, that you start blocking out and adding the resistance of this shouldn't be that way actually increases the chances that you're not going to find it. And if you can connect into that additional idea of there's more to it, and one way to let go of this isn't the way it should be is to just allow that to be a part of you. A lot of times I start thinking, well, this means that I'm that kind of person, so I'm justified in my judgment of something. Or this means if I'm feeling this way that I'm weak, so I don't want to be that. But if I allow myself to have that be a part of me and know that there's more, I can add on to it. I can be the Miles Davis of that clam of an idea, of a thought, of a feeling, and I can add on to it to bring that idea or that thought into harmony by saying, yes, that's a part of me. I am judging that person, but there's so much more to me than that judgment. And then I can start to attune to that. There's so much more. Yes, there's a part of me that judges, but there's more.
Yes, and when we're attuning, I always say that the grandest entrainment of them all is love and well-being. And it is the idea that the well-being and love is always called forth into being. There's always new birth, new growth. There's always the wound healing. There's always the drawing out and through of love and well-being. So when I think about the highest resonating entrainment is basically if you have one object, a tuning fork, let's say, that's resonating on A, and I sing an A, I can keep that fork resonating. And when I stop singing, it will still sing. It will still be resonating, that A. When you entrain with something, if well-being's my entrainment, then I, feeling the resonance of well-being and I ring out together. And so that's the idea of a resonating well-being. And so when we have that as our highest attunement, it's kind of like always having a reframe, because it's always calling forth something larger and a doorway and a tuning for us to do with our, as we said, our emotional energy, as well as the physical, the matter, and such. So one other attunement that I read about in the science world in the last couple of weeks was a term called elastic thinking and the elastic brain. And it was just going into further studies about how the peoples or the elders who have reached the highest numbers or the populations who have the most wellness, one of the skills that they possess is this ability to have elastic thinking and to have an elastic brain. So the scientists part did experiments to look at the brains and how they reacted, and the other sociologists and linguistic people and whoever were looking at how society or the person functions. And with the elastic brain, basically what it came down to is that they know that life is fluid, that, as Jage mentioned in the beginning, everything's a oneness, although we break up categories. So we'll break up categories of energy and say it's mechanical or it's this or that, but they're all functioning as one. And that's what the way that the people's life, they might not have said that's how I do it, but when they came in and looked at it, that's what they found, is that they know it's fluid And so they ask the questions, they use the reframing, they are naturally entraining themselves to well-being, and they resonate it. So I keep that fluidity piece in mind when I'm thinking about my thinking, like Jage gave it the excellent example of the judging of things, or when you find yourself getting all worked up about something. And I think about how what they stated was, in order to thrive in a changing environment, you must have an elastic brain. So I thought that's the fluidity that we want to keep, because of course we want to keep thriving, and with thriving we will need to know that everything that there is energy, so everything is fluid and changing. When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. It used to be when things got crazy, I get to feeling low. But I found out I can't let that faze me, 'cause honey, now I know. When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Who expects the unexpected? Life sneaking up on you. And sometimes we all feel disconnected. What you gonna do? When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Who's to say why it works this way? Well, it's kind of strange, but it's true. When everything changes, I can change anything. Turning the pages, everything's new. If life's little stages are teaching me anything, it's everything changes, and I can change too. Everything changes, and I can change too. Everything changes, and I can change too. Thank you. So when we're armed with our vibrational skills, we've got ways to reframe, we've got perspectives that we can move around with some wider energy, then we've really got our freedom. I mean, we've really got our empowerment, because whatever the stress, we've got eustress. Whatever the FOMO, we've got JOMO. Whatever. We've got well-being as the entrainment, love is the entrainment, and if your bridge is too far from that, you've got the ability to step your way, and everything up in that emotional journey is part of the same wholeness of the well-being. So there's no need for the judgment, just connecting in and hooking up to that harmony. As we say in our work, it's always inner harmony begets outer harmony. And so that's the way we look at things. And entrainment with well-being is naturally going to draw you to become resonating with that. So when we call forth the well-being through our resonating, we really empower the most vibrant experiences of our lives. And we design things as we want them, but we also feel them. There's no waiting.
Yeah, we want to thank you for this opportunity to be with you today.
So with that, we would just really like you to, when you think of the reframe perspective idea, really keep that tuning aspect in there and know that when there is also a resonating person that has that power within them, that's the person who you can feel walking among you, who you're drawn to, or you feel holds space well. They have the ability to go, as the brave, to go into something because they fill up with that resonating well-being as they carve out that time in their day as an attunement that's important. So that's the reframe that overall that we'd like to leave you with today. So again, I'd like to thank you, and thank you very much for the opportunity to reframe and share today.